Thank you for joining me this afternoon. My name is Sarah Mueller, and I am the program manager of the Business Waste Reduction and Recycling Group. And we're going to review today the steps for filing your annual Business Recycling and Waste Reduction report. The screenshot that you see on this screen basically shows you the login. This is where you will sign in with your email address and your password. There is also a link there underneath where if you have forgotten your password, you can submit to have it. You can then change your password, request a new password. So if you have difficulty logging in, this is where you're going to request a new password. What is the annual Business Recycling and Waste Reduction report? So basically, why do we ask you, the businesses of the county, to submit this report? What we gather from this are the details and the types and amounts of materials recycled and the amount of waste disposed during the previous calendar year. And then we take that opportunity to gather any educational initiatives or waste reduction efforts that you may have made at your property throughout the year. And that gives us a snapshot of kind of how businesses are doing in the county and what initiatives they've undertaken. This report is submitted annually by certain businesses, and we'll go into who those businesses are in a minute. Not every single business in the county submits a report, but if you're here, it's because you know that you do submit a report to us, so you are in the right place. The data submitted by the businesses helps us determine the recycling rates of the county. And what we do with that information is send that, state, and it gets aggregated with a lot of other data. But it lets everyone know how the recycling is going in the county. And then we use it to assess things that people are doing great, and then also any opportunities for improvement that we may discover throughout the course of these reports. Who needs to file? That's a question we get frequently. Large businesses are categorized as 250 employees and larger. And that means you are filing for your own business. This isn't 250 employees in a property managed building. This is just if you're filing for your own business with 250 employees. The deadline for those are February 1st. Medium businesses are 100 to 249 employees. Small businesses of fewer than 100 employees that we have requested a report, or you have needed to report in the past, still need to report ongoing as well. And then commercial property owners or managers of multi-tenant facilities are also required to file the reports. And those last three that I mentioned are due on March 1st. We do get a question frequently on what does it mean to be an employee, because things have changed a lot with teleworking and hybrid working, remote working, perhaps. So if you're unclear, certainly let me know. But as a baseline, we're talking about on-site employees. So if you have employees who live in Denver or live internationally or something, and they work for your organization here, that does not count in the number of employees that we're talking about. We're just talking about on-site employees, ones that are actually coming into a physical office. We want to know the mandatory recyclable materials that you have generated during the year. Just to refresh, the mandatory recyclable materials are mixed paper. That includes cardboard, paperboard, and then other types of papers. Commingled materials being plastic bottles, glass jars, cans, metal cans, and foil products. Scrap metal that's generated on site, that being things like small appliances, metal shelving. Probably don't see this as much in businesses, but pots and pans, that kind of thing. And yard trim. So that's the green space that you have at your business. Christmas trees as well are required. We don't see that as much in the business community, but sometimes you do have a live Christmas tree, and that is required to be recycled as well. The voluntary recyclables are those materials that aren't required, but a lot of businesses do still recycle them, and we hope that they are being recycled more and more. Some of the more common ones would be like food scraps if you're in a restaurant or a hotel that has like banqueting areas, toner cartridges, electronics for sure. Batteries are a huge one now that we hope that everyone's recycling, plastic wrap, et cetera, et cetera. But certainly if you're keeping track and you are recycling those materials, we love to hear about it. What you need to know before you start, it is certainly really important to get the information up front. It just makes it easier when it comes to gathering all the data and getting it all in at one time. Although you don't have to necessarily put everything in one sitting. You can enter some of the information, save it, and come back later. It will save what you've input and you can continue. It's just easier if you kind of know what you're looking for and gather it ahead of time. So we're looking for the types of materials that your business is recycling, the names and addresses of the collectors, so who's taking it for recycling or for disposal. The size and number of the collection containers. So those are the outside containers. We're not talking about at every desk or in every doctor's office. We are asking about the dumpsters outside or perhaps at a loading dock or something of that type. The collection frequency. So is it being picked up a few times a week? Is it monthly or is it on call? And then the quantity of those materials, that being the weight, is what we're looking for ultimately when we say quantity. Where do you get the information that you can put into your report? So obviously your collector is one of the first places you're going to want to go. So if you have a waste hauler or collector who comes and picks up these materials, you're going to call them and either ask for an annual report that they will have generated, or they may actually send something monthly with a billing statement or something like that. So it may make sense to actually go to like a business manager or your billing department. They may actually already have this information. It doesn't stop there though. So that's just your kind of general trash and recycling. If you do, like I mentioned, have somebody who comes and collects food scraps, that's a different collector. If you're sending things back like toner, or you have a mail-in program like for batteries or something like that, then you may want to ask somebody who actually is in charge of either taking that to a drop-off center or is mailing it back, or in any way disposes of those things for recycling. There are a number of places you may need to go to get all the information that your business has. We do have an estimate tool here, but I will show you a calculator that we have that's useful if you don't have the weights, but you do know the size of the container and the frequency it's collected. We can get you an estimate for the report. So if you don't have a collector or you take something yourself and haven't weighed it, we can give you estimated weights. So I'll show you that in a little bit. Here's a general kind of estimate for container sizes. But like I said, I have a calculator that I'll show you in a minute that may be more useful. It looks like this. I will go through it in real time. So we'll talk about this in just a little bit. Here's an example of the collection containers, what they might look like and what their sizes are. As you see, the common ones being 2 yards all the way through 8 yards. Those are the most typical that we see. Those kinds of dumpsters are collected on a route. So your, let's say, cardboard is collected in like a 4-yard container, for example. And then it's picked up from your neighbor and then 60 other neighbors down the road, and then put into a truck. So is there any way we can possibly know exactly how much it weighed being picked up from your facility? Not necessarily. That's when the estimator comes in handy. The same goes for toters, like you see on the bottom left. So we have ways to estimate the weights from those smaller containers as well. But when it comes to the compactors or the roll-offs that you see on the right, those should be weighed when they are actually collected at your collector's facility. So if you have a compactor or you have a roll-off, same goes for balers, that's going to be on the next slide. Those weights, they should be able to give you a fairly accurate weight for that. So do reach back out to your hauler and ask them, because it's not really possible for us to estimate that, especially if you're on like a frequent collection and it's not an on-call, so it's not always going to be full, then really it's better if they can give you a real concrete weight of what they've collected and then pass that along to you. So as I mentioned, balers, that's another common one that would have a specific weight every time it gets picked up. The same goes for the shredded paper. A lot of times the destruction company that comes and does the shredding, they do recycle, and they will weigh it when it's picked up. So it's best if you can get that actual weights from the collector and then put that weight on the report. As far as lamps go and bulbs and batteries and things like that, a lot of times it's, like I said, it's estimated as well. You have different sizes of lamps, you have different types of batteries. We do our best to kind of estimate and get a general number. But it is good to know if you're sending back lamp boxes like the one on the top or other mail-in programs, how many you sent back throughout the year, and then we can estimate it and put it on your report. Again, here's the website. This is where you log in. This is also where you find the calculator that I mentioned. If you were to scroll down under sign in, you'll see sort, and sort is the business. The track is for multifamily, sort is for businesses. You'll find the calculator link under there. But like I said, I'll go over that again in a minute. Here's just some screenshots. I am going to try and show this to you live, so hopefully it'll work, but if not, here's the old screenshots of what it looks like. This is what we call your dashboard. So when you log in, you're going to see something looks like this. On the right-hand side, you can see that you should be able to view previous reports from the years past. Gives you a good snapshot of what your recycling rates have been in the past, but also if you haven't changed your collection over the year and you're only getting an estimate, then you could refer back and see kind of what that general estimated weight would have been. And it's a good way to see kind of what your education efforts were, waste reduction efforts, and you can use that as kind of a snapshot from previous years. To get moving on this year's report, which will say 2024, because it's from the calendar year last year, you will click on Start Your 2024 Report, where it says like Start 2015 Report here. If you have multiple businesses that you're filing for, they should all appear here under groups. So make sure that everything's appearing there. If you're missing anything, let me know and I can see if I can find it and move it to the right person. Here, you're going to check the box of all the types of mandatory recyclable materials that you're collecting. If you're doing cardboard separately, maybe you're baling it or you're collecting it in a container on its own, you will click the cardboard collected separately. If your cardboard is mixed with all other papers, then you'll just select mixed paper. If you do have a document destruction company, like a shredding company, then you will check shredded paper collected separately. I have heard the question, if you are shredding in office and adding it to your mixed paper, hopefully in a paper bag, not in a plastic bag, that goes in mixed paper. Then you would not actually select shredded paper collected separately, because it is not collected by a different hauler. It is going in with your mixed paper. So that clarifies that if it's shredded and you put it in your mixed paper bin, you do not need to select shredded paper collected separately. Commingled materials are, like I mentioned, the plastic, metals, and glass containers, jars, bottles, that sort of thing. If all of those go in one container, you will select commingled materials, as you see here. Not many places are separating aluminum cans or plastic bottles or glass bottles, although there's some restaurants and bars that might, but overall, usually we're just seeing commingled materials. So if you're collecting all these things in one container, you're just going to select commingled materials. And then if you have Christmas trees, you would select down there scrap metal or yard trim, and then you would click proceed. Before I go on, let me just go back. If you have a single stream container, that being your mixed paper, cardboard, those types of materials go in together with your commingled materials. So in one single container, as you see here, it's broken out into two, but you will select both mixed paper and commingled, meaning you are actually separating those for recycling. And I will show you in a minute how you will notate that it's a single stream container. The voluntary recyclable materials you'll select from this list. It could use some updating. I'm not going to lie here, but hopefully most of the things that are being recycled voluntarily will appear on this list. If you have something that's not in here that you know is being recycled, let me know and we'll find a good way to notate it. But this is the list that we have for now. We are hoping to update it pretty soon. So select on here which materials you are recycling, and then proceed. Then, like I mentioned, you will put in the data for the container types that you have. So we're starting with recycling here. You will see there's a trash tab as well. So we'll get to that in a minute. You will choose the size of the container that you have for recycling. It's a drop-down menu, so you should be able to find the most common containers here. You do have the option to choose other if something that you use something that's not listed in this list. However, the most common are here, so you should be able to find it. Do be careful between dumpster and compactor, especially as it gets down towards the bottom of the list, because it gets to, I think, 10 and then or 8 or something, and then it jumps right into compactors, and 8 dumpster and compactor are very close together. So just be wary of, is it a dumpster or is it a compactor? Then we want to know the number of containers. So if you have one for cardboard or you have one for mixed paper, then you'll choose one. Now, like I said, if you have a single stream container, because we are breaking it out by mixed paper and by commingled materials, if you have a single stream container, we ask that you put 0.5 here, meaning half, and then 0.5 under the other type. So if this one's a mixed paper container, you'll put 0.5, and then you'll put 0.5 under commingled materials as well, to indicate that that same container is for both material types. And then you will indicate how often it's picked up, once per week, per month, per year, and on call is also an option. And then you will enter here freely under quantity collected, the weight. That's where you put in the weight. It's not by tons, it'll be by pounds or gallons are the options. And you don't need a comma. So don't put in a comma. If you do, it'll give you an error. And then you proceed again. Then you're going to need to enter the hauler. So you're going to click on Add Hauler. And you will get two options. Either you hire a hauler or you transport it yourself, backhaul it, or mail it in or something like that. So you choose the option that fits what your policy is. And then you will, so in this instance, they hire a collector or hauler, and you start typing freely the name of the company. Most haulers are already in the system. So as you start typing, the names will pop up. So wait for the one that applies to you and then select it and then move on. If you don't see the one that you are using, you do have the option to add it to our list. And then if you have more containers than just the one, then you will add a new container and repeat all those steps all over again. You will do the same for trash. It will ask you the container size, it will ask you how many, and it will ask you the collection frequency. Then you will continue and it will ask you the name of the hauler that takes and disposes of your trash. As you see along the top here, those tabs have the green check mark, meaning that all the information that it believes that is required has been input. If there is something missing, there will not be a green check mark, and you will need to go back and make the edits before you can submit it. You can fill this out in any order you want. If you want to do recycling first and then do education, you can jump around by just clicking those tabs, but you won't be able to actually submit it until you have the green check marks across the top. Under the waste reduction and the education sections, you can write freely in here. So whatever efforts you are making for waste reduction and any efforts you have on educating your staff or your employees or janitorial or whatever, that's where you'll write in here. You also can take the opportunity here to let us know any unique things that you may not have been able to enter into the previous tabs. So if you're recycling something that's voluntary, that's not on the list, you can put it in here. If you need to clarify something, you changed haulers throughout the year and that's why it shows up twice or something like that, you can also put that in these two sections as well. The report details basically asks you how many employees are covered by this report. If you are filing for multiple locations under one report, that means all of those locations combined. So for example, if you have a few offices, or grocery stores is a good example, Giant files all Giant stores together on one report. So the total number of employees from all Giant locations will show up on this one page. Home Depot is another example. They may file individually. So they file each Home Depot location individually. So under the employees, it's for each report for each individual property. So however you do it, it's up to you. We don't have a required way that you submit it. But do know that if you're combining all of the locations in one report, it is all employees total. The square footage that's covered in this report goes here. That can be just an estimate. It's kind of hard to get precise amounts for this, but you are certainly welcome to estimate that. And then the green space, that being landscaped or grassy area. So if you're in a very dense area, downtown Silver Spring or Bethesda, for example, and it's a shopping center and all it is parking lots, you can put 0. So that way we know that you did not really have any green landscaping that should be recycled during that year. You do have the opportunity then to preview it before you submit. So if you click preview, then you can see how things are looking. You can really get a snapshot to see if everything has been input before you move ahead, or at this point, you can of course go back and make any edits that you need at that time. Then you will sign and submit the report. I have had businesses that get to the end here and think that they're done because they see the green check marks along the top, but actually you do need to hit that final submit button saying, I have completed my report. I certify that I'm the person that is responsible for filing, and the name and the title before you hit the final sign and submit button. Once you do that, will receive a confirmation email. So you will know that everything is in and that we have it. We do have a calculator that can tell you what your efforts have saved throughout the year. So if you do have any interest in it, there's the website there. You can go and check out the gallons of oil you saved or water, etc. It's always interesting to see, especially if you have like a sustainability department or green team, they may want to know kind of what your efforts have done. Okay, so now I'm going to try and show you the actual website, and we will go through just a test. Okay, so this is what you'll see when you log in. And this is my dashboard. So I have like a dummy here business that I've linked. So to add a new business, you will click here if you have, maybe you filed before and you have more properties, especially for property managers. You may be adding or getting rid of businesses at any given time that you file for. So you'll say, I'm filing for a business in the county. Do you have 100 and more employees? You'll say yes or no. I will tell you, if you say no, it'll bring you here. And then if you were to click no again, it'll say that you don't need to file a report. But if you have heard from us or you filed in the past, then the answer to this question is yes. Then if you are filing for, let's say, just one, I'll use the example of just one for now. This is where you can enter the location of the property. Now, what I have seen before is if somebody, and I'll show you an example. So we have 1, 2, 3 test. And if you search, you will see that these are already here. If you go and try to add it, it's not going to allow me to add. It's just going to do this because that property is already in the system assigned to someone else. So if that does happen, and that is the case a lot of times, because that property already has been filed in the past and maybe you just took it over, then I need to actually be the one to move it. You won't be able to add it because it is currently assigned to someone else. If it's a new one, so I'm going to just pretend that I have a new property. So I'm going to say this is a new one. And hopefully, if this works, it will say that it is not in the database yet. So if that's the case, that's good. That means that you can add it yourself if you are filing something that is new to maybe your portfolio or something. Then you will add that business. You will give it the name. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 LLC, for example. It's in Rockville and it's 20850. You can fill in all this information. There's no asterisk by these, but for timing, I'll just keep moving on. You do need to enter what type of business it is. Let's say it's hospitality. And then you will save it. It's an avenue. So then it will show up in your dashboard. So I'm going to file for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to start. And you do need to say that is correct to the best of my knowledge. And here's where you'll say mixed paper and commingled materials. As you see, it's shifted around a little bit since the screenshots were taken. So this is what it looks like now. And then I have some yard trim. So I'm going to say, I also do, let's say, batteries. And then the first thing it's going to ask me is my mixed paper. So like I mentioned before, I'm going to assume this is a single stream container. So as you see here, the 8-yard dumpster and the 8-yard compactor are very close to each other. So just be on the lookout for that. The 8-yard dumpster, and I have one of them. And so I'm going to say the size, the number of containers is a half a container, so 0.5, and it's collected once a week. And then over the year, I collected something like 23,000 is the average estimated weight for an 8-yard dumpster. Then I'm going to add my hauler. I'm going to say it's Republic. And then I save it. I do the same thing for the commingled materials, 8-yard dumpster, 1/2, collected once a week. And the weight of the commingled is usually lower because there's more paper typically than commingled materials, so it's a smaller amount. And then it's Republic again. The yard trim is estimated by the size of the acreage. So if you have 1 acre, you have a 1/4 acre, you have, less than that or more than that, some schools or golf courses have many, many acres. So whatever estimated size is of your green space. So we don't collect this in a container. Actually, our landscaper mows and leaves the grass on the ground to decompose. So we call that grass cycling. We have to put a number in here of some kind, so 0, because there are no containers. And it is, let's say, throughout the year, they come 26 times. So that is an option to do yearly, because in the winter it's not as often, but in the summer it's weekly or something like that. And then we'll say, because we have roughly 1 acre total, I think it's 15,200 is what we estimate. In this case, nobody takes it away because, as I said, it's left on the ground. So we haul it or mail in our yard trim, and we don't haul it or mail it anywhere. We leave it, but we call it grass cycling, which is an option in the drop down for yard trim. Then we do batteries, and we have not applicable. Let's just say it's collected in a box, and maybe you have one of those and it's on call and it's mailed in 3 times. So then we can estimate. My box holds about 5 pounds of batteries. I mailed it in 3 times, so I had about 15 pounds. Then, because it is a mail-in program, I self-haul or backhaul or mail it in, and I send it to Call to Recycle. So now you see my recycling has a green check mark because I'm done. Then I move to the trash. Let's say I have an 8-yard dumpster. I have one. It's collected twice a week. Typically, we see the trash collected more frequently than recycling. And that's about 99,000 pounds. I do this a lot, so I know these numbers by heart. Anyway, so that's also Republic. Now you see I have a green trash check mark. If you have more, it's still going to say it's green because every piece of detail that we need for this entry is here. But so it may look like you're done. If you do have more trash containers, obviously you'll keep going. And then you can freely comment and then save, and then education, you can freely comment and then save. Like I said, you can see the report details. I have 5 employees. Actually, I think I said I had more over 100. So I have 103 employees. I have 50,000 square feet, and I have 1 acre of space. And then you keep going. Now you can preview it and see what it looks like, and it'll tell you all your details here. Once this is submitted, we will generate a recycling rate, and that goes here. Then I told you there's a submit button. You would certify that you're the right person and that's your name, and then you submit it. So I won't do that right now. I need it for another example. However, that's where it would go. And then if you do have another one, you can start here. If you have more information to input, this is where that report is that we already started. You can edit it from here, and it will still be accessible to you until you hit submit. Once it comes through to us, I can still unsubmit it for you to make changes if you need. You just have to reach out to me. And so that's kind of a snapshot of the system itself. And now lastly, I'll show you just a minute or two of the spreadsheet for the calculator. So like I mentioned, on our login page, you can see, you can click on the link that will allow you to download this calculator. It will just download as a Google form or Google Drive document. It won't do anything until you actually download it to your computer. So hopefully you don't have those kind of restrictions on downloading things from sites. But anyway, this is what it will look like once you've downloaded it to Excel on your computer. You do need it to enable the content. You won't be able to do anything until you click enable content and make it a trusted file. And then you will be able to input some data. So you can fill this in if you want to, if you need to print it. For the purposes of today, you don't need that, and you wouldn't need it to actually use the calculator. This is kind of what's important here. Do you have dual stream or single stream? Dual stream is pretty straightforward, so I won't go through that one. If you have a container for dual stream, it's a drop down here for paper, and then the commingled is down here. But really what may be more useful is for the single stream. So if you have a single stream container, it brings it to just one. So then, like I said before, my example was an 8 cubic yard dumpster. One of them picked up one time per week, and then it was for 1 year. So we actually created this during COVID when there were a lot of closures or reduced operations. So if there was closure, then we did ask the question of how long was it at this frequency, so we could deduct closure months. But most businesses are back in full swing. So 1 year just means that it was operational all year long. So that's all you need. And then you can go to the summary page. Oh, sorry, that is the voluntary recycles. Okay, summary page here, and you will see mixed paper. This is what you're going to put in your report. So if you need an estimate, this is where you'll find it's a half an 8 cubic yard dumpster collected one time a week, and this is the weight. And then for commingled, same thing, half the 8 cubic yard dumpster collected once a week, and this is the weight. If you have toner, like I mentioned before, for an example, you sent in 3 toner cartridges, you'll type in 3, and over here it will give you the weight of 8 pounds. So we have done kind of that work ahead of time so that we can estimate it and get some good data on estimated weights, and that way we can capture that on those reports.